kind of goes back to the olden days of you got to know who you know. You got to network. You got to have relationships. You got to have loyalty. And so now is the time to make sure you're really leaning into those trusted, localized markets where people have your back and they recommend you and you work together in those, relationships, because that like Googling for a roofer or, whatever, anything,
service provider.
Yeah.
that's going away really fast. It's almost like the balloon effect, the social media, not specifically social media, but the Googling and everything that you can find online. It's gotten there's so much noise out there. It's all white noise. Nobody knows who to trust. Nobody knows what perspective is actually neutral or true or paid for. So there is a distrust that's growing now because it's gotten so loud that you're almost going to see that reverse effect. You've already started to, but I think it's going to get more and more where people are just like, forget it. I'm going to go with who I know, who I actually
100%.
know and trust.
The idea of not over polishing and producing and just being authentic actually increases in its value because it's that much easier to tell that it's real. And the more that AI takes over, I think the more that people are going to have to lean into the idea that perfection isn't the goal. It's actually being human.
But also literally being in person. I don't want to have to do all the small talk, but at the end of those kinds of in-person things, you cannot argue that there is like a depth and a real connection. We are built for human connection and it is so tempting to get away from it, but it is irreplaceable. Like I really feel like I know it sounds old fashioned, but I think it's going to be the new, it's going to be the new.
When I did all my applications, I went to their house, sat down, filled out the paperwork for them. I really knew them. I didn't have a lot of people second guessing me, shopping me. I'd really like to sit down and talk to you about this because I just am really scared. This is the biggest investment in my entire life.
Right. This being real and being authentic is definitely suited better for what people are wanting and wanting to watch right now. And this is just like Katie's opinion, as a human and as a studier of people, I also feel like it's a lot healthier. But when you do that, if you feel the pressure of copying the other people out there and doing it like them or looking super polished and professional, that imposter syndrome is brutal. I think all of us in our jobs, as one thing I have learned from interviewing people in real estate or in the subsequent industries around it over the last 6 years, is no one is safe from the imposter syndrome. Everyone is on the outside trying to project this like super confident professional go-getter killer, and on the inside is like, are they going to find out I don't know what I'm doing? Like,
I think that there's this real backlash, this fatigue of normal people going, I think that's fake, and I think I don't relate to it at all.
Right.
And so that's why you're seeing, well, like you were saying, you get out of the car at the grocery store and you're sweating and your hair's not perfect, it's blowing like us up at Blue Canyon that night. I think that there's a backlash to perfection.
You can just be yourself.
So appeal to the people that you should appeal to by being yourself.
Yeah.
And
to make it really personal, like for me, that was, and this isn't even on social media, although it tied to that too. This was just face to face. Like when I first was sitting down with people and trying to bring real producers here in 2019, I was terrified of letting anybody know what my real life was, that I had 5 kids and that I was, had just been a mom for about, a decade prior to that. Like I felt like I had to hide all of that and project some sort of, or they wouldn't take me seriously.
Some sort
or people
of an
wouldn't think that I could do it and they didn't want it here. And it created so much anxiety in me. It was such a struggle. And it was probably a month or 2 in, my coach and some other just people who speak into my life were like, you got to breathe and just be you. Like, and if they if you can't do it as you, don't do it, because you're going to, maybe you will be successful and launch this as somebody other than you, but then you're trapped in this persona that you have put out there. And so it was a real shift and kind of like a leap of faith, but I started going into the meetings with the different brokers and the agents and just being actually me and not hiding the fact that I was a mom to 5 and a little bit crazy, and that I didn't have a background in real estate. And it was so much more genuine. The relationships that were built, the people who wanted to help were the right people. And I think that's, it made it something that I could survive and do as me long term, instead of feeling this like dichotomy of, putting on 2 different hats.
And I would like to say, I think that's why you're number 2 in the country, Miss Katie, because I think when you came on the scene, you were refreshing. We're all like the same kind of, we're perfect. We're in the real estate business. We can help. And you came in and we're so different and authentic. And I think that is the main reason
People are like, who is this girl?
You were just
what does she think she's doing?
You were so real. It was like refreshing, and people wanted to be part of that. And I think that's why you built it. So
all the top producers are going through it. So it certainly is a trust building component when you see someone being themselves and being authentic and real, so that you feel a little safer to be yourself, right? And it's interesting to hear, when you see behind the walls of, the fact that even the biggest producers, they're still human beings.
Nobody is like all hero or all villain. Like they're all a mix of humanity. And so I just love, like, I'm very passionate about that. Like we don't write anybody off as just 100% awful, or whether they're the most competitive, driven person in the industry or not. So I love that, like, my job gets to be just trying to infuse a little bit of empathy into a very high stakes environment where sometimes the worst sides of ourselves can come out. But like, if we can just flip the script and put ourselves in people's shoes,
yeah,
you can have a little bit more grace and empathy for each other, and that makes everything go a little smoother.
Well, and this industry in particular, with the pressure, and especially in markets where it's hyper competitive, 10, 12, 15 offers, that interaction between agents and title and lenders and appraisers and all parties involved can get really contentious really fast if even just one person in the transaction is kind of out of pocket in their behavior, kind of dominoes to everyone. So when you do have that connection, and like you mentioned earlier, when you're dealing with people that and you have a little bit of a personal relationship with and understanding, those transactions are always
it's getting contentious. But you guys were just at a real producers event having a drink and sharing a laugh, where you just read each other's personal story. There's just it's a little harder to act totally awful.
Yep.
That means 90% of the people that moved into the Sacramento region, their lives have been touched by 6% of these agents and the lenders and everybody that was part of their transaction. You're touching the lives of 90% of the people that live in this area. And their moving and buying a home experience is a pretty profound one in their lives. If you can make that go smoothly and you can touch their lives in a positive way, like they're going to move into this area with a positive feeling. It's very like snowball effect. And so I like that we can try to set the tone and the culture and the attitude around the way that we treat each other in the transaction of moving these people into the Sacramento region.
And I think the mix of all of this is, where Real Producers presents a great opportunity to bridge for people too. What starts with, potentially an online lead for some of these agents can convert all the way down to a connection that validates it. And I think conversations with, groups like we're having right now to figure out how to help people figure this out, because I think a lot of us, our head explodes when we start trying to figure all of these pieces out, because we just want to go back to having a conversation like we're having right now.